Okay, this is the end of Project 1, Edpuzzle. So we're going to talk about some stuff you should have learned in Project 1. So right here in Lesson 1, remember this was Lesson 1 of Project 1. We learned how to type a main heading. Remember, you'll only have one of these per website. You had a paragraph with open and closed paragraph tags. You had two different input tags. You had an input that created this box right here, the input type email that made the box, and you had an input type submit that made a submit button for you to be able to press when you wanted to submit your email. You also created this attribute known as the placeholder. That was how you told people what you wanted them to type in the box. And I think I typed that wrong. It should say they wanted to collect your email address so that people knew what to type in that box. Okay, so that was lesson one. And then just keep in mind that lesson one ended with our website looking pretty blank, so that we moved to project or lesson two of project one, where we started to add style to our website. This lesson had you learn CSS, where you created these two unique style tags. This is internal CSS because it's on the same page as your HTML that's down here. So remember, when I look at my screen, all my CSS comes between these two style tags, and all my HTML comes down here between my body tags. So here's my website, all the words, and up here was all my style. So I'm going to copy this out. When you started this, I had you do individual selectors. So that H1 is called a selector. It's selecting the words in my H1 tag down here. And they had you do things like text align. This is the property. And they said center, which you could see then that your H1 moved to the center and close that section. Okay. And then they showed you could center your paragraph, P selector, and text align as the property as well, and center for the value, and close that section as well. So now I have two different selectors. I'm selecting the H1 text, and I'm selecting the paragraph text. Notice those two items move to the center of my page. So my HTML that corresponds with the H1 and the P both move to the center. But my input tags, I didn't center them, so they are not moved to the center. If I create another selector for the input tag, I can then text align, center, and then they will move. No, look what happens. Because these are actual like items and not text, the only thing that gets centered are the words in the box and the words on the button. So I would not use text align to center that information. So what the lesson had you do is, instead of centering everything individually and having to figure out how to center that stuff, you made one selector for the body tag, body. And everything moved to the center because my entire website, all of my HTML is inside body open through body close. So anything I want to happen to the entire website, I put in the selector that I'm calling body. So they had, when I repaste what we had, they had all of this stuff. Now, if I wanted just my H1 to have a red background, I could put an H1 selector background red, and now just the H1 has a different colored background because I made it happen. I trumped what was going on in here with an individual selector. But if I want the whole web page to have some certain type of style, it goes in the body selector, and my individual styles go in the individual selectors. Okay? Lesson 3. Walking you right through that. This one taught you to put in an image, and it taught you to put in a background image. So let's talk about that. The one image, Anna's face, is an HTML image. It's IMG. It has an attribute of SRC. And then there's the URL where you can find her website, her picture. So when I want to change this picture, when we're using dash coding, there's a different way when you're using a real website. But if I wanted to make where Anna's face is a pig, I could come in here, find a pig, copy, image address, come over to my dash coding screen, and where Anna's face is, right between those quotations, you want to make sure you don't delete the quotations, and there's the pig. Okay? I can do the same thing with Anna's background. This is how you put a background into your CSS. So the one is HTML, a tag down in my actual content. And the one is going to be a style up here in my CSS. As you can see, background, URL, there's parentheses, but there's those quotations again. And I'm going to find a picture on the internet to do the same thing with. So let's get some mud for our pig. Okay, I'm going to use this, copy image address, come over to my dash coding screen. Oop, those were my pigs. There we go. And I'm going to paste right there between those quotations. The same thing with my colors. If I want to change my colors, we learned how to target both the input and the submit button. So because these both have the same tag, if I had put this stuff inside this selector instead, everything would be red. Okay, so I didn't want, I'm going to copy this out. I did not want the entire thing to be red. I just wanted that button to be red. So I could not put that stuff in my input selector because it would have changed all input tags to red. I needed to have a separate selector that targeted the one that said submit. And that's how you set that up. I put input, which is the tag, as my selector, in the square brackets, type equals submit, and I can just make something happen to the submit button. In the same idea, then, you would say that if I pasted this and target just the word instead of submit, the other input, email, right? We have that one down here, email. And I set up something like background pink, right? Then it's only going to do it to the email box. So that's how you target certain parts of a tag. Okay, so that was lesson 3. When you get to lesson 4, you're going to come in here and do the same thing to your website. You're going to change the colors, the pictures, and the words to make it your very own site. And it can be about anything you want. And you don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, just the colors, pictures, and words to be different. Okay, and then show me when you're done.